I will not be able to take care of myself and my family because you are going to be put in the situation of having to make those kind of service reductions, fare increases.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to bring to the stage my partner and co-founder of Newsmakers Live, 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, Mr. Maynard Eaton.
Now, was I far-fetched? I mean, it seems as though there was a conspiracy to thwart everything you tried to do. And as a martyr writer, a martyr advocate, it hurt.
Maynard, let me put it this way. I got what I call a fire hose education on the Georgia General Assembly. And it was, what was really unfortunate is that, yes, we have major financial issues at MARTA, as every public transit system around the country, as every one of the public transit systems in the region. But what really got lost in the shuffle was the fact that once again, there was a failure to wind up addressing the broader structural transportation issues that we face as a state and as a region. And when you get on the public transit side, above and beyond MARTA, the fact that the state of Georgia absolutely has no dedicated funding that it does for public transit, for any public transit.
They don't pay a dime.
No. It's de minimis. So, and we're not talking about the state of Georgia in comparison to the New Yorks or Connecticut's or whatever. Just there was a recent report that was commissioned by the governor called the IT3 report, and it was done by McKinsey & Associates right before this session began. And what that report says, we couldn't have done it in a more compelling fashion. It documents the significant underinvestment that has taken place in transportation infrastructure and services across the state of Georgia for over the last 25-year period of time. And then there's a chart that's in there that actually shows the per capita investment in transportation in the state of Georgia. We are 49th out of 50th, okay?
Wow. In terms of monies?
In terms of monies per person that are the investment that our state makes in terms of transportation. So I come back, yes, it was beyond unfortunate what did not take place in terms of MARTA during this session, but the bigger missing gap for us is that we have still failed to reach the bar, if you will, in terms of what we're going to finally do in terms of making an investment in transportation.
Dr. Scott, I think you're as good as it gets at what you do, and it's certainly a great interview. The last night of the legislature, Sine Die, you were in tears. I mean, you were choking back tears, so you really looked pained. Explain what happened. Explain how you felt that night.
Well, the first thing, let me just say this. If I had had a broom and I could have been a witch and flown down on that floor, I would have taken that broom and whipped people, okay? Because I was watching what to me was like, I said, everybody's throwing spitballs and jumping up and all of this, and the people's work was not done, okay? So that was an experience. The reason I feel deeply and passionately about the work that I have been privileged to do over these 30 years. And the reason that you saw the choking up, and it's just me, we just that very week had over 300 people that were over at our Lindbergh facility.
Public hearing.
And I can see Mr. Woods right now in my mind's eye, and that gentleman saying to me, if you guys have to wind up cutting your service in the evening or on a Saturday or a Sunday, I'm not going to have a job, okay? Because my employer is not going to want to hear that I can't get to work now because of the fact that you've had to cut your services. So when it is not MARTA that people are hurting, it is everyday individuals who are depending upon MARTA in order to be able to knit their lives together. And so the failure of our legislature and the leadership, the failure for us to get this work done, yes, it does. It personally affects me.
A week or two ago, we had the chairman of the Fulton County delegation, Representative Roger Bruce, here, who said we could have cut a deal to get MARTA's money, but he thought it was a bad deal. Do you agree with him? I thought he let MARTA down, personally.
Let me simply say this. I would never ask, as important as the issue of MARTA and MARTA survival. I would never ask to barter.
Barter?
Barter.
Okay.
Okay.
No deals, huh?
No deals. I would never ask to barter education and school kids and health care against MARTA. So
And that's
that
what it
is
was. That's what the deal was.
Let me simply say that there were discussions in terms of just the politics of it all, that MARTA got involved in politics that were far beyond having anything to do directly with MARTA.
Yeah, you were down there virtually every day. I mean, you were something else. I thought at one point you became a lobbyist or a state representative yourself. No. But talking about politics, how fierce is it? How bad? How mean are the politics with regard to MARTA? And is it still racially based?
There's no question but that, and this is we got the whole mix going on. So let me tell you, there were times that I saw things happening on the floor. And I want to be very clear. The Senate was unbelievable in terms of the passage of the MARTA Act. I can't say enough about Senator Doug Stoner. He was a champion for us in this. Senator Mullis. Senator Kasim Reed. I mean, there were a whole
Kasim
group.
was really passionate about this.
And and I'm not wanting to suggest that there was not leadership as well that was supportive on the House side. Van Smith, we just could not. I mean, the House was a major, major issue for us. Now, I will come back. What I saw more than anything at the legislature was that there are two Georgias. That most of the folks that were in the room, however, had what I saw was very much what I saw at a national level in Washington 15 years ago. Most people in the room had no reference point to transit, big-time transit, period. So what I saw
they
in the
were
room,
rural or just
rural. So what I saw more than anything was ignorance. And I say that most people, there's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. Stupid you can't help. Ignorance is a lack of experience and exposure. So for the most part, what I saw largely in the room, in the House, was ignorance. People they don't experience big-time public transit. They don't know anything about it. So when you don't personally think of something that adds value to you, then you add the other part to it, which becomes the demagoguery, the stereotypical, the da-da-da. And so then you start talking sign language. And so there were actually times that on the floor, when very honestly, I say, oh, here we go. You say the word MARTA, and sign language was Negro, okay? And so
sign language was what, ma'am?
Sign language was Negro, okay? So there were some times that you had this depth of we really don't understand the value of really public transit at its fullest. Then there was not a real personal engagement in having any direct knowledge about MARTA. We had some folks that really had very clear agendas in terms of denigrating the organization.
Right.
And then what winds up playing when there is a void and there is ignorance and no direct knowledge, then you had all the other stuff playing. So it was like, well, that's that MARTA. Well, MARTA, largely Fulton, DeKalb County. That's very, very heavily African American. Oh, big transit. Big transit must mean, ooh, the big metropolitan communities, big urban areas. Isn't that crime? So you start having things beginning to operate on all kinds of levels, which really take you away from the major point of it, but a lot of it was really ignorance. So what did I take away from it? Let me tell you what happened to me on the Sunday afterwards.
The Sunday after the session?
This is Sunday after the session. I'm going to connect this dot in a minute. I was in church.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. I was in church. And I had my Bible. And I opened my Bible. And I'm Catholic. I go to Our Lady of Lourdes and up on Boulevard. So I was in church. Flipped my Bible open. And I say I'm Catholic because, Catholics, we got everything. We got rosary beads. I had them all. I have holy water from the Vatican. I pull it all out, okay? I was working with everything, okay?
Praying for a special session?
I had my grandma's rosary beads and a couple other meetings. I'm telling you, this is serious stuff. So when I flipped my Bible to the back, a card came out. And I swear to God, it was a prayer card, and it had a little poem on it. And the poem is, "Don't Quit." When it's deep, and this came out that Sunday, don't quit. So I said, and it was Palm Sunday. And I'm listening about everything. I said, don't quit. So I put a pin in that. Then the next thing, it hit me like cold water. I said, Beverly, smack. You've been in the wrong frame. You've been fighting the wrong fight. You need a different lens. And let me tell you what hit me like cold water. What? I said, this 50-50 stuff, this is not about MARTA. This is not about MARTA. This is about Fulton and DeKalb County residents who 35 years ago had the vision to tax themselves on a 1%, and nobody has a stricture on their 1% but Fulton and DeKalb County.
That's right.
Okay, I said, wait a minute. What am I missing here? I said, so what's happened is nobody else has it. As we've talked about and debated these broad state transportation funding issues, it's not been proposed for one other penny that's on the table. And if it were best practice for MARTA, if it made sense to have a 50-50 split between capital and operating, then I simply say, let us have a level playing field. Let's have a 50-50 on any penny that moves on infrastructure. So I said to myself, I said, wait a minute. This issue has been marginalized, stereotypically so.
Right.
For 30 years, MARTA does a rite of passage. The finances go down, the economy goes down. MARTA, because so much of our funding comes from the sales tax, we put our hat in our hand, we go up, we beg, and we say, could we please wind up having 55-45 as opposed to 50-50? And
now explain to people what that means. You're trying to say, you got a bunch of money.
What I am saying is that there are unique provisions in the MARTA Act, which candidly we have not found in any other major transit system in the United States.
And it hamstrings you.
That restrict this agency to having to wind up putting 50% of its sales tax in a operating budget, which means what you can pay salary and wages for, and the other in a capital budget for things. So that means that, and I can't cross that divide.
Which is what you were asking for out of the legislature
and
this
so
session.
What we said to the legislature, not that, and nobody's taking away the fact that you do want to make prudent business decisions. But that's why you have a board of directors, and you invest them to wind up being able to use the appropriate judgment with that management to be able to navigate through the financial period, and you hold them accountable. What we have not found any other major transit system having, and for that matter, any other transit system, is to have a requirement, a hard requirement, that 50% has to wind up being this 50%. So let me tell you what would happen. That means that I can, during this serious, we haven't seen times like this in the country since the Depression. That means that I have money in the bank,
$165 million or something.
65 million of really restricted assets that I have absolutely no ability to be able to touch to keep regular service running. Now, I could go and buy a bus with it. I could go buy a rail car with it. I couldn't operate it because I couldn't pay nobody to run it, okay? But I could go do that, okay, while we're sitting up having to have meetings where we are sitting and talking to someone like Mr. Woods, who pays this tax, and is saying, I will not have a job. I will not be able to take care of myself and my family because you are going to be put in the situation of having to make those kind of service reductions, fare increases. So what hit me on that Sunday was that the lens was the wrong lens. It is a bigger issue than MARTA. It is simply an issue of local control and self-determination for the residents of Fulton and DeKalb County. And that is the fight that we will fight. And so if it's a good practice, then we only submit that anybody else that's talking about doing anything in terms of additional pennies for infrastructure should say, well, if it's good to have that 50-50 for MARTA, then it's good to have the 50-50 on this. And it was a very sometimes you get so close to something
Right.
that you almost can't see the forest for the trees, and it was real enlightening.
Frustrating.
It was very frustrating. It was very frustrating, but I am the eternal optimist, okay? Eternal optimist.
You said that earlier.
I
you said it
did.
throughout the whole session.
Throughout the whole
You
session.
said you thought it was going to pass, we're going to get it.
I did.
You
I
was,
thought.
every time I interview you was,
I really did. Now, what I thought was going to happen, I wasn't going to be Pollyannish. I said, okay, what's going to happen is we're probably going to have a compromise. Well, there'll be some kind of sunset on it or whatever, but nobody can look and see what's been happening in these economic markets. I mean, the downturn of the economy, we're $40 million down in terms of sales tax receipts this year. That doesn't have anything to do with MARTA. It's just whoever thought that this economy was going to tank
but
like
Dr.
that.
Scott, where are we now? I ride in MARTA, I tell you every day. The fear is palpable. People are scared because we heard what could possibly happen. Then people read a little bit. They say, oh, we got an infusion of $25 million or something from Enterprise.
Let me tell you.
So people are thinking, are we going to be saved? Is MARTA going to be saved?
Well, let me tell you this. Everybody needs to be scared.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but I'm going to be honest. This issue of not having sufficient funding, thank God that President Obama is in office.
Right.
Because all this money we're talking about, that is this save you money, is all one-time stimulus money that just came in for 1 year.
Yeah, right. That's it.
And that's it, okay? So that we are looking at being able, hopefully, to be able to do a swap, a reallocation, not a swap, of some capital dollars. I'm going to change green money and change red money to green money, okay? One time. This next year's budget, we're looking at a $40 million gap. So if we were sitting out talking about 1 day of service, conceivably this year, we will no sooner book this budget than be right back out there talking about 2 days, day and 3 quarters. The reality is that we've not, it's not about being scared. This is about being mad. This is about being angry. This is about saying, what is it that we need in order to be able to knit our lives together to make things work for us? What is it worth fighting for? And I would submit, I mean, it's the ability, issues of mobility and access of people being able to get from point A to point B. That is people who
Right.
are lifeline, as well as people who are making that decision as a lifestyle choice. As a lifestyle choice, we have got to provide for quality transportation options and choices. So the key is need to get energized, need to get mad. My point about it is, if you don't like MARTA management and you don't think we're doing the right job, get rid of us. If you think get rid of us. Those things should not stand in the way. The Atlanta region, for the last 35, 40 years, has failed to build out its regional transit system. And it's time for it to stop, okay? So we need to get mad, but more than that, we need to get a plan of action. We need to work it, and we need to force the issue of holding accountability for making sure that that transportation investment takes place. And I'll be very candid with you. We can't get the answer if we don't call the question. And there has not been a regional transit referendum that's been held in the Atlanta region since 1990 in Gwinnett County. That is almost 20 years ago.
And
So
you
we
say-
will not. So we sit up and have these conversations. I call them the boardroom elite conversations about what we need to do from a transportation funding standpoint. What I think candidly is that we need to have a movement of people that are just good grassroots people at all walks of life, okay, who simply say, enough already. We think that a transportation investment in having a top quality, world-class transportation system and network is what we need. That's what we want. We're prepared to we're going to hold you accountable, but we're prepared to make that investment and hold our electeds and all of us responsible.
Dr.
for making
Scott,
it
I hear
happen.
you saying you're a child of the 60s, you're a baby boomer.
Absolutely.
You're saying this should be an activist movement.
Absolutely. I am absolutely convinced.
That,
Absolutely convinced that the public gets it,
right.
and that what it is that we have to do is to actually take this from being, with no disrespect intended, there's been a lot. One of the reasons I came here was because I could see this tremendous churn and discussion that's been taking place on the regional level. There's been, for the first time, there's been a transit vision for an expanded regional transit system amongst a 14-county area.
Right.
And it finally got adopted unanimously in December of this past year.
Does the Metro says
the
with the-
Metro, okay.
They're not
Now,
afraid of y'all anymore?
that's what I'm saying. So it's so the vision, so this is a piece. Maynard, we got a vision now. May not be perfect, but we got a vision. And it's a vision that's beyond Fulton and DeKalb County. Now the next piece we got to do is we got to fund it.
Right.
Okay? Because otherwise you can have a vision on a piece of paper. If you don't fund the vision, it's just another piece of paper. Then we're going to have to deal with the difficult issues of governance. Because, of course, if we're going to put more money in the pot and expand it, MARTA's going to have to change. A lot of folk going to have to change. Greta going to have to change. Cobb going to have to change. And what I would submit, because my dog in the fight is, I've been 30 years in this industry. I'm not worried about having a job. Okay, and I'm saying, tell you the honest God's truth. I'm not arrogant, but I'm not worried about having a job. So my point about it, we need to wind up doing this smartly, so that, of course, there's going to be some consolidations and some mergers of organizations and entities that needs to take place, because that just makes good sense. Okay, and it makes good business sense. Okay. Now, what I've told employees at MARTA is this. I said, let me tell y'all something.
Look at you.
That's it. As the old people used to say, sookie, sookie. I said, let me tell you something. I said, last time I looked, this 5,000 employees here at MARTA, I said, we're the 9th largest public transit system in the country. Last time I looked, these 5,000 employees that make up MARTA, that places around this would die to have, are the only ones in the entire state of Georgia that have the knowledge, the experience, and the demonstrated track record of planning, designing, building, and operating a complex multimodal transit system. So for an organization that has been, I call it, treated somewhat nastily or under attack for too many years where it's been high, I say, you know what we're going to do at MARTA? We're going to stand up. We're going to put our shoulders back. We're going to do the best job that we can every day. We're going to occupy the ground we stand on, and we're going to serve with pride, okay? That's what we're going to do at MARTA, okay? Because that's exactly. And so, so my point about it is that we're sitting on top of $6.4 billion of infrastructure, 5,000 people who every day carry over 500,000 passenger trips on we move more than the city of Atlanta every single day. And anything moving, you can call it. You got a new campaign. We're going to get buttons. Some people are so afraid of calling something MARTA. I'm beyond that. I was laughing. I said, we're going to get some buttons made. And we're going to say, we're going to have a new campaign. Say, call me Fred. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Just call me Fred. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Because the point is that MARTA is the infrastructure for whatever will wind up being the expanded regional transit.
Whatever expanded, it's got to come to MARTA.
Got to come to MARTA. Okay, and so, and just very, very proud of, we're not perfect, and, I used to laugh, my grandmother would tell me, she'd say, there's no God Juniors, okay?
There's no God Juniors.
No God Juniors, so we're not perfect, but you couldn't ask for a better group of employees.
I was told by Clayton County Commissioner Wole Ralph Monday, he said, Maynard, you're going to talk to Dr. Scott on Thursday News American. I said, yeah. He said, tell I got some bad news for him, that they're going to drop your contract. They can't afford it. So Clayton County's not going to have any bus transportation.
Actually, we are planning to have some meetings with Clayton County. I can't speak to, at the end of the day, what Clayton County's ultimate decision. We are a contractor for Clayton County. They decide what the service levels are, and they're the ones who have to budget the service. What we did for Clayton County last year at their request, and we've done the surveying, people have been absolutely pleased, the customers have, with the quality of the service that MARTA has been providing, certainly over and above what their prior operator was.
Right, exactly.
We went out to Clayton County and did a presentation for them about 6 months ago, which documented the extreme overcrowding and need for significantly expanded service in Clayton County. At the request of the commission at that time, we put together a plan to show them, with their staff, to show exactly what all was needed in terms of additional service, because literally people are almost coming off the buses, okay? We went back to make a presentation to Clayton County, and quite candidly did not have the opportunity to make that presentation. No disrespect, there were so many members of the public there that night that wanted to comment. So we have heard through the grapevine. I've sent 3 letters to Clayton County. Quite candidly, another was hand-delivered today, to simply say we have to know what is their pleasure in terms of the service level that they want to run.
You're saying they need a higher service level. They're talking about cutting.
Yeah. We've heard numbers, and I don't even want. I've heard numbers from staff that could be as much as cutting more than 50% of the service.
Let's talk about something. We have a few minutes left here. And this is the most germane. Yes,
Can I say something, though? I got to say this. But let me tell you about the demographic of the Clayton County user of service. 61% of the people who use the Clayton County service are using it to go to and from work. 60% of them were gentlemen, young kids who were young men between the ages of 16 and 34 years old. And the majority of them said that if they did not, in fact, have public transit, that they would not have had a way to make that trip. Wow. So the only thing that I would submit to anyone who has to make this decision in Clayton County is that this decision is a decision which I'm sure they will appreciate, that will significantly impact lives and people's ability to wind up. And the majority of those young men were African American.
And they already have problems with young people. Yeah. Could you give us just a quick snapshot of the demographics of a general ridership, please? Who rides MARTA? I mean,
who rides MARTA?
Just people like you?
No, we have. You know what? We have we have a bouquet of roses.
A bouquet?
A bouquet of roses and flowers using MARTA. A little bit over 50% of the people who use our service are using our service to commute. They're using it to go to and from work. Next highest category is for school trips. The next highest category winds up being in the area of medical and social services trips. Majority of the people who utilize our service, 46%, say that they couldn't have done it if it had not been they could not have made that trip if it had not been for MARTA. 87% of the people who use our service on a day-to-day basis are residents of Fulton and DeKalb County. And that's something that we get asked quite a bit. It's like, how many people are the people of, Fulton and DeKalb, and it's really about
87%.
87%.
Because I thought a lot of vagabonds.
87% are Fulton and DeKalb County residents. In terms of income, we have about 60% that are on up to about $35,000, and then we got about 22% that are over on the other end that are $75,000 and higher. Okay, I tell people all the time that we are going to provide the best quality service that we can, and I do not care whether or not, and I say this in no way, the person is a prince or a pauper. Our responsibility, our purpose is to provide the best quality service that we can to every customer that we can, and every customer that we have is a valued guest.
Let me say something to you. I told you I ride every day, and I ask a lot of questions. And I've been doing a story about you since the session started, and it kept changing. But I ask a lot of your employees. You get high praise. You get high praise from the people who work for you, the drivers. They all want more money, but they know you got their back. And I just want to report for them that they think highly of you.
Thank you.
Well, everybody except Andrea here.
That's it. Well, I tell you one thing, and I can't say enough about our employees. Like I tell you, I mean, they're wonderful. Actually, people they'll say things like, oh, you guys got those bloated this or whatever, and it's all most of it is stereotypical. We actually would have been in contract negotiations with our union February 23rd, okay? And this actually started well before the session. I had talked to the executive committee of Amalgamated, and I said, look, this was even before the October tsunami with the Lehman Brothers and all that. I said, the economy is looking so bad that I would hate to be in collective bargaining over economics now. So we talked about it. Well, when the Lehman Brothers thing, when that mess happened in October and those markets went crazy, it was like, Lord have mercy, Jesus. So I have to say very much for our employees, and I am so appreciative. In December, I went to meet with employees and asked if they would defer collective bargaining for almost 18 months so that we could be focused on the work that we needed to be focused on and not slamming it back and forth across the table. And 40-1, they voted to do that. So that's something that they did. It wasn't about Bev. That was really their contribution again to this community, because if we had been in labor negotiations trying to do economics on top of $40 million down on sales tax receipts just in the current year and $1.2 billion down over 10 years, it just would not have been the kind of environment that would have been the best for our customers or for this public.
Dr. Scott, there are those who wonder why you're even taking this. You're one of the top 5 in your career. Like you said, you don't have to worry about a job. I mean, you're among the top 5 in the country. You are. You're ready there, and you're as good as it gets. There are those who worry, like State Senator Kasim Reed said. She doesn't have to be here, man. That's why we're lucky as heck to have somebody of her caliber. Will you stay? Are you headed out of town?
Let me tell you, I am not headed out of town. I am here for the long haul. That's it. It's so. I tell you, when I looked. This is my unless of course I get run out, but this is my last position. This is it, okay? And it's let me tell you why I came. You do this and you kind of know who you are. And I tell young people this all the time. There's not a good or a bad kind of manager, but the thing you really do need to know the most is who you are. Right. So I'm a startup, fix-up, change, transition manager. That's, usually it is always buckle up, baby, when it's around me, because we're in those periods of churn and we're taking it to another place. So anyway, that's me. That's the characteristic of every single position I've had is always that. Okay. So when I was looking around, I said, Atlanta, they always choke up. They never quite get there, but the congestion, it's a major market. The congestion is real bad. Yeah. The air quality is real bad. Yeah. Everybody knows it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then I tell you the other part of it. This is the honest to God's truth.
Well, that's a downside of it.
But let me tell you the good things. And all my life, Atlanta got an attitude and an ego. Yes. Okay. I would go, how I come to meetings or you meet people other places, And I don't care. They could be from Cobb, Gwinnett, whatever. When they go someplace else, they're from Atlanta. Okay. That's the answer. They're from Atlanta. You meet people at meetings and all this kind of stuff, and you ask them, say, and where are you from? I'm from Atlanta. Swagger, shoulders go back and everything. I said, So I laughed and I said, Atlanta is a region with an attitude and an ego, and I tell you why that's important. And I laugh with people all the time. I say, you go someplace like a Portland, and everybody there is very clear about what the objective is. They are going to be world class. No equivocation. Not a also ran, not a second class, not a whatever. What is the mission? The mission is to be the best. And if you don't think you are supposed to be the best, you won't be. And so that can-do attitude, that resilience, that tenacity, that entrepreneurial spirit, that to some extent, what's almost taken for granted, I think, by Atlantans, because I see a focus on economics and empowerment, because I lived in D.C. for years, 2 times, okay, and that is very much a government town. There is a entrepreneurial spirit and drive and a can-do-ness about this region that, like I said, nobody's perfect, that comes through, that is very different, particularly to see it so exhibited by the African American community. To me, is just, I'm thrilled. Okay, and so I was actually laughing. I said, all my life I've always said that at the end of the day, when I finally kind of hung it all up, I would go back to Houston. I have a lot of families from Houston, and I was laughing. I said, my God, I knew I was going to like MARTA. I knew that was going to fit. I knew I would like the region. I knew I was going to like Atlanta, but I didn't know that I was going to like it as much as I do. And I didn't know that I was going to feel so personally affected. Okay, meaning,
you're really into this.
I'm really into this. You just you can't imagine, but to be an African American CEO, there is no other place in this country that I can have, and I worked with MATA in Washington. There is no other place in this country that I can have the feeling and the self-satisfaction of making the kind of contribution and doing the things that I can do here. I can't have that. I've worked New York, I've done Jersey, I cannot have this feeling any other major transit system in the country or in any other community. And that's a good, and so I feel so honored, and I'm not it's one of those kind of feelings like, I do get goosebumps when I think about I'm standing on the shoulders of so many people who went before me, and I didn't know that it was going to as profoundly affect me. That I have people like on my board, like I have Mrs. Abernathy on my board, okay? Right. And it's like, these are icons. Now, I know they're just average people, but this place, this space, this Atlanta with all its, the legislature, the race was in there stirring around and that. But you know what? That two sides of the coin, that's one of our challenges, right. But it's also been one of the greatest strengths of this region. So I'm like, we in it for the long haul. I told my staff, I said, let me just tell you this, and I tell the public, this is not a sprint. It's a marathon, okay? And so at the end of the day, we are going to wind up doing it. I am just confident that we are. I'm not going to say there are not going to be a lot of challenges and obstacles, but with the public in there with us, demanding to wind up having the kind of top quality transit system, I believe we can do it.
Dr. Scott, you have no idea. You are pure joy, a pure delight. What a great interview. Thank you so much. I'm glad I ride MARTA now.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Seldom at the end of Newsmakers have I felt so touched. And I feel touched because of what Dr. Scott said. She said, nowhere else in America can an African American overachiever actually get some results that they can feel and touch. This is what we need. This is our leadership. This is significant contribution. This is not fluff. This is significant contribution. Every day, everything she does touches some black person somewhere in this city. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Newsmakers.